I'm the member for Hinkler.
Well, thank you so much, Mr Deputy Speaker. What we see here is an indication of the inability of this Labor government to actually defend the Australian people and their interests. 100%. Our job in this place is to act in the interests of the Australian people, not others, in their interests, for their safety, for their protection. And to give you an indication of what the Australian people are thinking, Mr Deputy Speaker, this was correspondence I received to my office yesterday from an individual, and I'll give you the summary version. I was at one of my craft groups this morning, and we don't usually talk politics, but I can tell you everyone was disgusted about murderers and rapists not only being released from prison, but being given all of this aid at a time where we have people who are living in their cars. Mr Deputy Speaker, the response so far from the Albanese government has been completely inadequate. And if we look at the timing of the response, this was a decision that was taken last week with the resources of the government, of the Australian Government Solicitor, of the Public Service, of all of the available extra support that can be provided given you have access to the Treasury and the budget. In the time between last Wednesday and Monday morning at 10 o'clock, this legislation could easily have been drafted and drafted in consultation with the opposition and its shadow ministry. There was no restrictions on that. There was no inability for the government to come forward with a proposition and have that discussion. And of course we stood ready to work with the government on what is a matter of public interest, protecting the safety of the Australian people, every single individual. Instead, we have a situation where not only have 80+ been released, 80+ criminals being released into the community, we hear this morning there could be up to another 300+. This is an outrageous proposition. Now, the High Court has made a decision. The Minister for Immigration was in the chamber yesterday, effectively saying in the MPI, the matter for public importance, that there's nothing we can do here, there's nothing we can see, and yet overnight we now have legislation rushed into the parliament which could have been developed much earlier, which could have been introduced on Monday, rushed in, provided to the opposition at 7:15 this morning, and now we find out we can't even put forward amendments which we believe would actually make it a better proposition, that would strengthen the proposition, that would help defend the Australian people who are at risk. And they are at risk from these individuals. There is no doubt about that whatsoever. And yet we find this government takes the time to extend the sittings on their closing loopholes bills, the list of union demands. That was the priority during the week. Extended sittings of the House of Representatives to deal with those demands, but not this. This issue is front of mind for the Australian people. They are struggling with cost of living, they are bogged down in their own issues, but they know that this matters. Now, this parliament deals with difficult issues. That is why we are elected. We are sent to this place to represent their interests, the interests of our community and the Australian people. For the Labor government to roll through this morning with such small notice, 7:15 for our people to get across this amendment without the ability to consult and talk to others. I mean, it is just outrageous. Mr Deputy Speaker, how is it possible, firstly, that it's taken this long, and secondly, that it's trying to be done in such a short time that we have little time to actually get out and consult with individuals who could put forward changes which we now find are blocked? We can't even do that. So we have a Labor government which firstly failed to act, secondly said yesterday that there's nothing that can be done here, thirdly rolls up today with a proposition, fourthly says the opposition can't make amendments and can't make changes and can't put forward better propositions, and fifthly it will go to the Senate where it will be debated, and I'd suggest, as the Leader of the Opposition said this morning, we will attempt once again to put forward what we think are improvements. So instead we have an inadequate proposal to keep the Australian people safe. We have limited time in which to put forward amendments which we think will strengthen the proposal and the proposition in the interest of the Australian people. And thirdly, what will happen this afternoon or tonight, Mr Deputy Speaker? Well, who knows? Perhaps we'll find that it is important, and we'll be back tomorrow to look at this again in the House of Representatives. But what we do know is that this Labor government has its priorities wrong on this matter. The Australian people deserve to be protected. We are here to act in their interests. We are here to defend them. and the decision to release these individuals has to be addressed, and it has to be addressed now.
The question is this bill be read a second time.